Hey guys, welcome to Habesha Connection. Today we have a very special guest who we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. About therapy, could be about how to deal with grief, about life. But before we go into it, and let's welcome Betty.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's it going, Betty?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
How's life treating you?
Good, thank God.
Thank God, yeah?
Yeah.
You're blessed in life.
Yeah, no complaints.
That's what I like to hear. Before we start, let's get to know who's Betty.
Betty, I was born in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa.
What part of Addis Ababa?
I was born in Kofe, but majority of my time in Addis was spent in Lafto. The area is called Lafto at the moment.
I'm just asking like I know it.
I know,
okay.
but you
I'm
you
learning.
can Google it now.
Yeah, exactly. It's easier.
Yeah. So Sarbit was where I lived for the majority of time. I left Ethiopia at a very young age, like quite young age. I was just around my 11th birthday.
Oh.
Yeah. So and then I went to Holland. I've lived there for a while.
What part of Holland?
I've traveled.
Really?
Yeah, I've lived in few parts, but for the majority of the time in Holland, I lived in a small town called Apeldoorn.
Okay.
Not many people know
How far is that? I already know Rotterdam, Amsterdam,
And
Den
The
Haag. The Hague.
Den Haag.
Den Haag, yeah.
Yeah. Apeldoorn is about an hour and a half from The Hague,
Okay.
so it's like closer to German borders.
Oh, so you can understand maybe one or two words of German.
No, not really. Well, yeah, one or two. Yeah,
One or two.
I can manage two.
Really?
Yeah. So and then I moved to UK, London in 2006.
So you find, what's the difference between Ethiopia, Holland, London?
Well, in Ethiopia, obviously, you're surrounded with family, extended family. And then Holland is really where I kind of grew up into my teenage years. And it's where I was built, so to say. So there it's quieter, obviously. You don't have the Habesha society as much as in London. What else? The life quality is a bit different in Holland than London.
Do you consider yourselves a Londoner now?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, forget London. The tickets are
Yeah,
London.
majority of the time has been spent in London. So
But you speak Dutch?
I do, yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Say hello to
I
our
do.
Dutch friends. We have a few Dutch friends in Holland. So,
Oi.
Hoi, 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 hoi. So how's life for you in London?
So in London, after moving here, I did my university here and started working here. I work at the moment.
Working life.
Yeah, I work in real estate, property, commercial property management. Yeah, that's basically it.
That's brilliant. That's amazing. How's the COVID for you?
COVID was tough at the beginning. I'm not gonna lie, it was a bit scary, but it at the same time as well, it gave me a time to calm myself down, reflect, connect with yourself. So yeah, I handled it better than I thought I would. So I'm happy.
What did you learn? Something new about you during COVID?
Something new about me is, it's okay to be by yourself. Before I always, go out and look for entertainment, from others. I like to connect, socialize. And that's why when COVID started, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Am I going to be at home the whole day and everything? And
They get used to it.
but at certain point, I really start to enjoy it. So much so that I don't want to go back to the office anymore. I've continued working from home. And
You're still working from home? Or?
I'm going to continue doing that.
Oh,
Yeah.
good on you. Continue. But what? You don't mix it. Have maybe 2 days at home, 2-3 days from
I'm going to
office?
do 1 day at the office, 4 days at home. That's it.
Oh, wow.
I'm done. I love my house so
This
much
is the new
now.
Betty. She doesn't
This is
want
the
to
new
live at
Betty.
home.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
But we want to get to the serious topic that got us here with you, which I think you got a very amazing story to tell. We want to start with how, before we start talking about therapies and stuff.
Yeah.
We want to talk about how you got there, how to deal with grief, and if you can tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, I lost my sister to cancer. And that was, I think, the hardest thing I've experienced in my life. That was something that completely broke me down. As I've told you, my life has not always been rainbow and sunshine, you know. Moving from one country to another, I've had, you know, my fair share of difficulties and challenges in life, the ups and downs, which, to be fair, has made me stronger, and I have built my resilience. But it wasn't enough to deal with my grief, with my loss. That was something that completely broke me down.
I can imagine that must be the most difficult thing to deal with in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, losing someone that you love that much and that's close to you, it is hard as it is. You know, when it's someone who's so young, has got really young children, it's really hard to come to terms with, and it's really hard to accept, which obviously a lot of people tell you to do when you go through grief. When you lose someone, they're like, oh, you need to accept it. God has done what he has, you know, what he has written.
Would you say
but
that
it
is of a way of our community dealing with it?
Yeah.
They tell you, oh, it's the person's time to go, but they don't realize you actually had to deal with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, how we deal with our community, we've got this beautiful culture, but for me personally, how we deal with grief is very wrong. And there are things that people say out of, you know, because they are the things that are said in these kind of situations, that they are the norm. But we don't realize that we hurt people by saying those things. Don't get me wrong, I'm not, you know, blaming anyone, but I used to say those things as well to others when they lose someone. I used to say, you know, God has done what, you know, his plan. This is his plan. You need to accept it. You know, and people say that out of care, but it really is hard. It is really hard to hear, especially when you are in that depression moment for yourself, you know, where you are really struggling. It's really hard to hear.
Because people don't realize it's like you said, they saying it from a good heart.
Yeah.
But they don't understand how the actually person feels.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is why, we were talking about this as well today.
Yeah.
You know, why we talk about therapy, and after I had to go to counselling at the end because I couldn't come out of my grief. I couldn't come out of that dark place that I was in. So I had to seek professional help because I couldn't get it from the people around me. Although, and with that said, I had amazing people around me. You know, my friends, they're an absolute stars. They were there throughout everything, throughout every step. But, you know, it wasn't working for me. Yeah. So when I realized that, you know, unfortunately, I realized that really late. And it took me so much until I, you know, start feeling physically ill. And there are moments that I completely broke down, and then, you know, I had to like find professional help because it wasn't working.
But how difficult is it to deal with the grief before we got to the therapy part?
Yeah.
What was it? Because we're here to learn. I think it's very amazing to have someone like you to talk about it so we can all learn from it. Yeah. What would you say that was difficult to deal with during your grieving moments?
Accepting it, you know, like I said, in your head, I think there is a natural understanding of all of us that, you know, we here in the world, we grow up, we go to work, we have children, we grow old, we see our grandchildren, you know, you die at the age of 80. And that's, you know, that's the mindset of everyone. But when someone is taken away from you so early, coming to an acceptance, you know, why does this happen? How is this, you know, how can this happen? What about those children? What about her dream? What about her passion? All her hard work? That, you know,
all of a sudden you wake up, the person's not around.
The pain is unbearable. You know, it's not physical pain. People can't see. It's, you know, you walk, you talk, you know, your hands move, but you are in a constant pain that there is no painkiller for.
It's very difficult. I can just imagine how difficult it is. It's like you said, people can't see actually what goes on in your head.
No.
So it's actually one of those most difficult things to deal with. And you can't bring the person back. So how do you go forward?
Exactly that, because then your whole future is shattered.
Mm-hmm.
You need to imagine your future, because that person was in your future. When you imagine your future, when you make plans for the future, you'll be like, oh, in 5 years I'll do this, when I do that. And suddenly, you know, that plan or that image of you had is completely shattered, and it changes you as a person. It changes your life. Your walk of life is going to be completely different. And that's the hard part as well. That's one of the hard part, accepting the change, because you want to wake up and the next day and, you know, accept the loss and be back to the person you were.
Yeah.
You know,
So
whatever that
acceptance is
person
the hardest part.
Acceptance, coming to the acceptance part is the hardest. And that's the thing, what you learn in therapy, like grief has got different stages, and acceptance comes at the end, and you have to go through those 5 stages.
So maybe that's what we're going wrong sometimes. We just want to try to accept it straight away.
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest problem. Yeah.
That we find it. So now, this is very important, especially I believe in our community. There's a stigma going for therapies.
Yeah.
And all those things which we should be using. That's available for us. What made you think, you know what, I need therapy? What stage was you that made you think, you know what, I need to go and try it? Because I know we don't oh, this is going to work. It's about just trying them first. Yeah. So what was the moment that made you think, you know what, I need to try it?
Like I said, I became physically ill. I had no energy at all. Zero energy. I go to work, and when I come back after work, I'm like exhausted.
Can imagine.
I am tired all the time, and I used to go, you know, I go to the GP and I'll be like, I'm tired, you need to do blood tests. So they would be doing blood tests. Everything is, you know, come back fine. My immediate first thought goes to, you know, iron deficiency, because I've had that before. So I'm like, check my iron level. And they were like, that's fine. And I went to the GP, I don't know, so many times to check my blood. And they did every time I go there, and I requested my blood, you know, my blood test to be done. They did it, and every time they come back to say, you're okay, you're fine. Mind you, this is not immediately after my sister died. This is like 3 years after.
It's the emotion effect.
Exactly. Because first of all, in the beginning, you are in denial. So your brain is shut down. You're not feeling anything. And then at the end, I think the fourth time I went to the GP again, and they were like, actually, how are you emotionally? Are you okay? And I sat down there, and because she said, your blood is fine. I was like, are you sure? And I started crying at that moment, because I wanted her to say, you know, something is wrong with you. Yeah. Here is a medicine.
But is that in denial?
Okay. Exactly. Because at the back of my head, I know that I was not doing well, because waking up every day wishing that you don't wake up, that's not normal. Waking up every day having hard time imagining your future is not normal. Like not wanting to move, not wanting to go to work, not wanting to, you know, come out of your bed is not normal. I kind of know that at the back of my head, but you know, you don't
accepting and talking about it.
Yeah, exactly. To say like, actually, I'm not well emotionally. Let's go to therapy, because as long as I wake up, as long as I wake up and I come out of my bed and go to work, I'm still okay.
Everything seems to be normal.
I'm still okay.
Yeah, you're
although
giving that
I'm
energy.
I'm not 100%, but I'm okay. You know. So when she said, "How are you emotional?" I start crying. I broke down there.
She put you on the spot.
Yeah, she was like, I don't think anything is wrong with you physically, but how are you emotionally? And, you know, without even realizing, I started talking about it. And I was like, I'm not okay. I've lost my sister 3 years ago. I'm still struggling. Da, 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 da. And then that's when my GP referred me to see, you know, counselor. And that's bereavement and counselors. So they specialize in bereavement. So, yeah.
And this is what I think sometimes in our community we don't realize. Sickness, it doesn't have to be physical sickness. there's emotional sickness. And I think we avoid it so much.
Absolutely. And that's because we're not seeing it.
Yeah.
But it is equally important because how in neurologists, they say you are your brain, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if your brain, if your brain is not well, then you're not going to be well.
How are you going to
physically.
function 100%?
Exactly.
You know?
It's going to affect your day-to-day life. It's going to affect your relationship with others. It's going to affect, all aspects of your life. So it's going to affect what you do. And we as a human, obviously we don't want to admit that because it's not physical. It's not something that you see. But
What is it? Would you consider it to be ego?
Or it's because the unknown, isn't it? Like you said, it's not something that we talk about. It's not the norm. It's considered white people thing to go to therapy. But I always say these days, like, white people are wise enough to deal with their issues quickly so that it doesn't affect the rest of their life.
I just don't understand if you're sick or you have, let's say, injury problem, you go to the doctor, you go to your GP to get help. If you have emotion problem, that something is not right.
Yeah.
Why can't we just go and get help?
Yeah. I always like to illustrate it like with a broken leg. If you break your leg, your bones, you go to the hospital,
Yeah, fix it.
And it has to be done properly. If it needs operation, it needs operation. If it doesn't, if they need to put it in a casket, whatever, it has to be dealt with properly. If you need physiotherapy afterwards, you would go. Just the same way you don't leave your broken leg to just sit there and try to walk on it while it's broken. You really have to think about your mental health as well, like that. It's just if you are emotionally broken, you need to find a way to fix it properly in the right way, so that it doesn't affect the rest of your life. Like I said, because if you leave your broken leg as it is, at some point I think bones grow, isn't it? It will grow, but you will never walk the same again.
Same way, of course. It could be
And
bend. It could
exactly.
be yeah.
You will. You might be even able to walk on it, but you're going to be in pain throughout your life.
Yeah, and the thing
until it's fixed properly.
Yeah, and people forget it's getting help, therapy, or for emotional. It doesn't happen just because you lost someone. It could be a relationship problem. It could be a financial problem. It could be so many problems that we just don't seem to go and get help. And this is where I think we appreciate someone like you can come to the community and talk openly. That I think it helps give us a bit of understanding from the person that went through it.
Yeah, grieving, people grieve for different things. Yeah, grieving is just a process. It's not just a loss of life or loss of loved one, but you grieve for, people grieve for many other things, for loss of relationship, for loss of, if you lose your business, for example, that you've worked really hard to build, for many things that you lose, you grieve. And, the important thing is that you grieve properly and you give your time to grieve, to go through your grief properly, because otherwise, if you try to suppress it, it will manifest itself at some point in some way that you don't really like.
Yeah, you'll break down.
Yeah.
You break down. So what was it, that moment you said, you know what? Okay, I'm going to take this step.
Yeah, like I said, when my GP said you need to try it, and at that point I was, like I said, because it's been a while and I was struggling to come out of this dark place. And like I said, it was the fact that I was suppressing it, it was manifesting itself in different ways. Sometimes I had this anger, triggers, and I would be really, really angry for
So did you
no
see
reason.
yourself changing?
Yeah, exactly. I saw myself change, and I broke down about other things. Obviously the challenges in your life will continue, but the things that you will have dealt with it properly before your loss. But now I used to be completely broken about it or be overly emotional about it. So that's another struggle as well. I used to say to myself, what is wrong with me? Why am I acting like this? Because I find myself acting in ways that I don't know from myself, and I realize it afterwards. Like I said, I either be really angry about something And when I say angry, it's like,
And it's perfectly acceptable.
yeah,
Because you've gone
You're
through
n-
something
yeah.
that is not easy. And this
Yeah.
is what we need to make it clear. It's not like you dropped a cup.
yeah,
You're dealing with something that's dramatic.
exactly.
That has really
And
affected your life.
And it happens to everyone. Obviously, loss affects a lot of people, and unfortunately, we all come across it at some point in our life. But it's just for me, some people deal better with it than other. There are people who've lost a whole family, and they've dealt better with it than me, for example. But my resilience around that is different to another person, who might be able to deal with it better. So I think like I said, in our culture, there is a certain way you deal with it. In the beginning, there are people around you, people come, you sit down, you cry with people allow you to cry.
Does that really help though?
That's the thing. For me, it didn't. Because in the beginning, as I will explain later, so, like I said before, grief has got 5 stages of grief. So, and that's why what I understood once I've started going to therapy and once I start reading about it, for those who wants to read, like for me, it was a lifesaver. I swear by that book right now because it really literally saved my life.
What book was this?
It's called It's Okay That You're Not Okay, and it's written by Megan Devine. For the first time after 3 years when I start reading that book, I'm like, finally, someone who understands what I'm feeling right now. It was what I was feeling was written in that book.
So it helps you open your mind.
I was like, okay, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It's because the fact that I didn't, she writes somewhere in the book, she said, the fact that you don't want to live, it doesn't mean that you're suicidal. It's just that you rather not wake up in the morning because otherwise it's just painful to go through the day.
So we just said that's part of the process.
Exactly. And she said, it's okay, it's normal. And I'm like, thank God,
Give you hope.
Exactly. I'm like, and she encourages you to go through it. And and she tells you it's okay to feel in certain ways. It's normal, which obviously our culture or the way we deal in grief in our culture doesn't say to you. If I tell someone sometimes it slips out of my mind as well, and I'll say, I wish it was me and not her, or something like that along that line. And my friends will be like, how can you say that? And I know that comes out of care because they love me, because they don't want me to say these kind of things. But at that time, it's just what I felt. I was like,
emotional feeling you have.
Yeah, and some of the things you just can't control, especially when it comes to feelings, you can't control. That's why I want to say to people as well, be conscious about what you say. So don't say to someone, you shouldn't say that, or you shouldn't feel like that. Feeling is not a choice. If it was,
we'll all control it how we feel.
Exactly. If I ask you now, every morning you wake up and you have the choice how to feel, what would you feel?
Happy, but it's not the case.
Exactly.
It's impossible.
Feeling, exactly. Your feeling just creeps up on you.
Yeah.
You don't have choice in how you feel. You do have choice on how you deal with it.
Do we find it then in the community we are forced to feel in certain ways?
I think it's people got used to saying these kind of things. I think it's not just our community, but it's just we as a human being. We are, because especially you care about person. It's then I think human nature to want to fix that person or to solve that person's problem. So when someone start talking about their pain or their struggle, the first thing that your instinct will say is you want to try to solve it. So you will say everything. Fix. Exactly. You will because you don't want to see that person suffer. You want to tell them, don't feel like that. Do this. Pray. Whatever. But I think what I've learned is the best thing that you can do for someone if you want to help is just be quiet and listen.
Listen what they got to feel.
Just listen what comes out of their mind. Because for that person to start talking, it takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort. So don't stop them by giving them advice about what they feel or what they shouldn't feel or what they should do or what they shouldn't do. Just allow them to talk. Allow them to release whatever is inside them, because that is the only way you can help someone who's struggling. Yeah.
Listening is more important.
Absolutely. Just be quiet and listen. And if necessary, ask more question. And if you really stuck and, at the end, say, how can I help?
I mean, this is a very, when you hear it from someone who goes through, like someone like you, it's actually, we're all learning. I'm learning. We all should be learning, because this is the only way we're going to improve.
Absolutely.
Have an understanding how to deal with certain things, because we all know how we deal with grief, or like you said, it could be a business lose, family lose, anybody. And in our community, yes, there's a stigma that we don't really use the therapy or ask for help.
Yeah.
It's all about coming together and crying, and it's very refreshing to hear someone like you coming along and that's gone through it and educating us.
And there are especially two things, two very common things that people say, and I beg people, please stop yourself from saying those things. They do really more damage than any good. And those are, one is there is this belief, I don't know where it came from, but they say if you cry about losing someone, their soul will burn. I don't know. Yeah. And I don't know where that comes from, but that is such...
Is this a culture thing, or is it?
Yeah, it is a very common thing that are amongst Ethiopian people that say. I'm not sure about Eritreans.
I'm not too sure.
In Amharic, there is people say like, don't cry. There is a certain period that you are allowed to cry, but let's say after 2 years, if people see you cry, they're like, don't stop crying.
But how are you supposed to control your emotion?
Otherwise, the soul will burn. And I'm like, it really is painful, because when you are in pain and you've already lost that person and you're missing that person so much, when someone tells you, you are emotional and you're in pain, and someone tells you, don't cry because...
And they put on guilt on you at the same time. Yeah, and
then you are, in your head, there is a struggle. You want to cry, you want to shout, but at the same time, you don't want their soul to burn. I don't think it works like that. It might come from a religion perspective, but I'm really sorry. I'm not against any religion, but I don't think God works like that.
But
I don't think God is that mean that, also it contradicts what we believe. We say they've gone to heaven, they're with God, and it's peaceful in heaven. So there's no burning there. I don't think so. And I'm sorry if I'm going against anyone's belief. But
you shouldn't be sorry.
It really is a hard thing to say. To
hear it from someone that has gone through it, you are making us understand. Yeah. What it feels, or when someone is telling you.
Yeah. And the second thing I don't like when people say is grief, too much grief brings more grief. There is a very common saying in Amharic as well, Hazen yametal. Very wrong. You are, in my opinion, you are terrifying someone, you are terrorizing someone who is already in so much pain, so much emotional pain. And then you are putting so much pressure on them as well to come out of it, but they don't know which way to come out.
That can mentally drive you crazy.
Those two things, I really beg everyone who listens to this not to use those terms going forward when you come across to people who are grieving, who are in pain about a loss.
I mean, you see, you saying it could be just for one person. It will make you think, and then it will give us a bit of understanding how it feels. And I hope people out there can see this and have a moment to think.
I hope so, and
give us a bit of change, a way of people deal with it, Yeah. And I feel really proud to sit here with you and to hear it and to give us example how it feels and things not to do or not to do for the person. Yeah. We need that open conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And which is why I've, especially like I said, after going through therapy and learning how some things are really wrong, how we deal with especially grief, because that's what I know, how wrongly we deal with it in our community. I thought it needs to be talked about, and wherever I go, I say to people, actually, don't say that. And
that's fantastic, and you should never ever stop. We should continue telling people.
Yeah, absolutely, because we if we don't talk about it, if I don't tell my experience to others, people will still continue doing that. If I didn't go through my grief, I wouldn't understand how it felt. Like I said, I said those things before myself to others, and I feel really not ashamed, but I'm like, they shouldn't have said that to this and that person.
Yeah, but
Because
you didn't know better.
exactly. This is why I feel, it's my responsibility now to tell people, even though you haven't gone through it, no, this is how people feel.
And this is great. And this is what we want people to do, is sometimes we do make a mistake unknown.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we know them, we can correct people. We shouldn't just hold them and say nothing. Yeah. I think we should come out and speak and help one another and correct one another and learn, and never stop.
No, absolutely. And that's, it helped me. It helped me to know that whatever I was feeling was normal. Wherever I was, the ups and downs that, the emotional ups and downs that I had, and the unusual behavior that I had, they were all normal. And she, like said, the book that I read when I go to therapy, my therapist used to repeat that at things. And I was like, oh, wow, I read about that in the book. She's like, yeah, because that's normal. And she used to say, and I used to tell her, like, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 and then she would sit and listen. She wouldn't say anything. And at the end, she would be like, yeah, okay, that's okay. Yeah. The fact that, the funny thing is, when I started therapy, like the first few sessions, I used to go and I say, I always start my sentence by, I know I shouldn't feel like this, but I feel like this and that. I know I shouldn't feel like this. And I think I'm
Did you feel guilty to say that?
Exactly. I feel guilty, not guilty, but I feel wrong for feeling the way I felt. Like I said, I feel wrong for being in such a dark place that I didn't want to go up, wake up, or that I don't want to go out of the house, or that I don't just, there was a moment that I really didn't want to do anything. I just want to hide in my bed and not face the world. But those were the normal things. And I used to feel like wrong about feeling those things. Another big thing that there is a big difference between how the cultures deal with it and how the therapy deals with it is about talking about the person that has passed away, because most of the time people are not comfortable when you bring up that person. I've really noticed that people are not really comfortable talking about that person or mentioning that person, because again, they are coming from, it comes from a good heart. They don't want to hurt you by bringing up that person. And this is different for everyone, obviously. But for me, for example, I love to talk about my sister. Anyone who asks me about her, they're doing me a favor. I love to tell people what kind, people who don't know her, I love to tell them what kind of person she was, because she truly was a wonderful person. I love to tell them, what we did together, our relationship was. Exactly. And that's how I keep her memory alive, because one of the things that hurts me is the fact that she's no longer there. I don't want her to be forgotten. I've got pictures of her all over my house. And that's how I keep her memory alive. And from someone who knows her, I want them to tell me their story, the things that they remember. And that makes me smile. So sometimes it makes me cry, because I obviously, it might make me sad and I might cry, but that's a good tear, because that's the way we deal with grief. But in our culture, people don't talk about the person who have passed away. And sometimes it's so funny that I found people like going around the bushes, trying to tell a story without trying not to mention her name or not to include her, or, you can tell like they were telling a story and they kind of try to exclude her part, or just not to mention her.
Do they feel like they're bringing the grief back?
Yeah, it's just, I know that it comes from protecting me, not mention. If they don't mention her, then I won't be in pain. But what they do really actually hurts me, because I'm like, we should really talk about her. We shouldn't really forget about her. That's what I want. I want people to tell me what they remember, and that makes me happy.
Good memory keeps
exactly.
you going.
And when you go to therapy, they encourage you to talk about it. Talk about that person. Tell your story and what's going, who they were and who they were to you and what you've done. And
I mean, if I sit here and let's say, for example, about your sister, and I'm trying to avoid it, yes, I can understand from your point of view. It's actually you're gonna start thinking, why is it avoiding?
Yeah, mentioning her name.
Why not mentioning her? It's it's understandable, but I think people don't realize that. I think maybe they feel sometimes, like you said, not in a bad way, but thinking, oh,
and like
do you know
I said,
what? I don't want to upset her.
Exactly.
I don't want to.
You know, I had this conversation with one of my friends, and we were talking about therapy and all that, and I mentioned this to her, and she was like, "Oh, Betty, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that. You know, there are so many moments that I want to mention her because I remember her a lot, and I want to, you know, talk about her and mention her name. But I was worried that I was going to hurt you." And I was like, "No, you won't. Just tell me. It will make me happy. It makes me happy to know that people remember her. It makes me happy to know that she's not forgotten. She might be gone, but she's not forgotten. And that is important for me. It, like I said, it might be different for someone else. You know, another person might say, I really don't want to mention that person.
No, but that's the beauty. We're here to learn from someone from your perspective view.
Yeah.
That, you know, it means that not every shoe fits everyone.
Exactly.
So
absolutely,
we need to learn and adapt for different people from different ways.
Absolutely. And, you know, the way people things do might help a lot of people. But, you know, the way our culture deals with things might help a lot of people. But it didn't help me. Yeah. For me, it was just, it didn't work for me.
And that's why we want to focus to those that is not helping them in a cultural way. We want to focus to the people like you that been open enough to come and tell us it didn't work for me.
Exactly.
So even if it means it can help one person,
absolutely.
You know, it's to me it's brilliant, it's an amazing job.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's going forward now. We want to go to the therapy part, right? The main part.
Ask me.
Right. Yeah. When you accepted, you know what, I'm going to try this, right? Explain to me what was the first step that you took.
So, like I said, I went to GP and she advised me to go there, and she gave me the card. And I made an appointment, and I was still a bit resistant at that point, even though deep down I knew that.
And I think that's what people find difficult sometimes is to take that first step to go. You know what? I'm gonna call the therapist. I'm gonna go try it. I think that part, a lot of people I feel they find it difficult.
Yeah, you know, but the funny part is when we talk about therapy, we think we need it. We don't need it until as long as we walk, we talk, we still socialize. Because I'm sure many people will be surprised with this video because not many people knew how much I struggled. Not many people know I needed a therapy because I continued my life as normal. But the real struggle was when I was by myself. Right. It was in my head.
Talking to yourself.
But I managed to still move on, live my life as normal as possible, with the exception of the little, anger burst out here and there, or emotional burst out here and there. Many people didn't realize how much I was struggling, and I think it's for people as well. We think we need therapy at the end, when we completely are broken down, or when we can't come out of bed anymore, or when we are at the point of suicide. But it shouldn't really get there to get help.
It's supposed to prevent us getting
absolutely there. Absolutely. I heard someone saying about marriage counselling, because how many people go to counselling when they have difficulties in their marriage? Nobody really.
Not a lot.
But they accept divorce, or they go the divorce way, but nobody really considers going to a counselor, marriage counselor, to talk about their problems. Sometimes, and you see how many marriages have you seen fallen apart, not because of lack of love for each other, but it's just lack of understanding, or both of them have got their emotions being taken over by their emotions, and they don't know how to deal with each other's emotions. But if you go to counseling, they, we've talked about this before, they don't have the magic stick, but they teach you how to control your emotions. That is what therapy did for me. It taught me how to deal with certain things that I was struggling with, that I was stuck with.
Because we don't realize how powerful our mind, emotions are. That's all we have.
Absolutely.
It's our emotions that makes us do. It can make us do the right decision. It can make us argue.
Yeah.
It can make us be peaceful.
Yeah.
So we don't realize it's actually such a powerful
absolutely.
thing.
And after that, I became really into reading into like our neurology, and how controlling emotions, how everything is really connected. How our brain works and so forth. And it just opened my eyes to so many things, because neuroscience, they say, when your emotion is in control, you've got three parts in your brain, right? Your emotional brain is in control. You don't have access to your, common sense. The brain, the human brain, it calls it, that thinks logically. So you need to be in order for when you are in a fight, for example, your emotion is in control. So
Takes over.
You respond in a way that's not right properly, because you don't really have access to your logical brain.
It's absolutely, because if there's a fight, for example, in a boxing, if a person is too emotional, he's more likely to lose the fight, because if you got more control of your emotion, you're more likely to win the fight, because you're in control, you're more calmer, you know what you're doing, you know what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. And then that's what therapy teaches, that taught me, like, how can I, when I'm emotional, for example, she said to me, like, sometimes when you feel, so there are moments when you feel like just doing nothing and stare out of the window.
Mm-hmm.
She said, just do that. Sit in the corner of your sofa, stare out the window. What's wrong with it?
That's what you needed at that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If that's what you need at that moment, just do that. Don't fight it. And that was the thing I was doing. I was fighting it, For example, I didn't want to go see my friends, but my friends wants to meet up. So, no matter how emotional, irregulated I was at that point, I would still like dress up.
So you
put
forcing
my makeup
yourself.
up. I forced myself to put a smile on my face and go meet my friends. But by the time I come back, I would be exhausted, physically exhausted, because I was in a constant
You're
fight.
out of your comfort zone.
Exactly.
You win out of your will, and it's draining.
Absolutely. And I learned to say no. So to say, I learned to listen to my feelings at that time. So if I'm like not okay at that moment and I want to be alone and take a moment for myself, I would, even to my sister, she say, can I come? I'll be like, not today. I need a time for myself. I learned that, and that helped me to, go through and deal and calm my emotions and go through my grief properly.
That is just amazing to hear, though, how they teach you to control your mind.
Yeah, no, and another misunderstanding, I would say, is, like I said, the stages of grief, because a lot of people, if they see you after 3 years, you should be okay with it now. But grief has got 5 stages, as I said. People might go through all of them, some of them, or, but at the beginning you are in denial, so you're not feeling anything. And then after that comes anger. So you're angry about everything. Like, why can this happen? Why did God? I was angry, and when I start reading and learning about those things, I recognize all those stages that I've gone through, because there was a time I was angry with God. How can He do this?
Why something's been taken away from
and
me?
I used to say that
like
out loud, and my people around me will be scared. I'm like, don't say that. And I'm like, I was angry. I couldn't control my anger. And there is reasoning. You say, okay, it's okay. And then I went through that stage as well. I would say, it's okay. At least she has kids. I can see her kids. It's okay. At least we have had a time together. At least that's the
cherish
reasoning
the moment
part.
you had.
Yeah, and then the fourth part is depression. You go through that dark stage, and I said to you, like, I was in that depression stage after 3 years. And that's the dark place where you just give up on everything.
Start
your
crumbling.
Life, your vision, you can't see anything but darkness. And that is the hard part.
How did you come out of that?
And you need, to go through it to come on the other side. And after that comes an acceptance.
So those are the 5. Let's repeat them.
Denial.
So everyone outside or around the world would know what's going on. Denial.
Anger. Reasoning. Depression.
Acceptance. Yeah. Okay. So after what stage did you realize where you got to the depression?
Yeah, and at that point was my start. I started therapy, and when I start talking to her about it, she's like, "Yeah, you are at the depression stage." I'm like, "After 3 years, how come?" She said, "It's natural. Everyone has got their way. You know, some people go through all 5 in a year.
Yeah.
Some take 10 years." And she said, "For you, it's now." And she said, "And it's okay."
But would you say as well, if you don't deal with it and face it, you end up being in depression?
I think you would, for me, I think that it was, I'm glad like I said, I went through that and I understood it. Like that's the big part, isn't it? Knowing what's going on. Because not knowing, I was fighting it. Like I was fighting my feelings. I'm like, why am I feeling like this after 3 years?
Because you could have been fighting in 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years.
Yeah, I think it helped me, like understanding what was going on in my head and knowing how to deal with my emotion. Like I said, the simple things as listening to what's going on inside. And she said, like, my therapist just says to me, whatever you're feeling, put it in front of you and face it. Don't avoid it. And she said, once you face it, deal with it, and then it will go away, trust me. So like she said, if you are going to have a bad day, just face that bad day. Say, I'm having a bad day today, so I need a time for myself. If you need to listen to the music, listen to music. If you need to go out for a walk, just go out for a walk. If you need to do whatever to lift your, that helps you, do that. But acknowledge, I'm having a bad day today.
So does that mean that, sorry to cut you off, in our community, we don't face them?
No. If you say, I'm having a bad day, people will say, oh, come on. Especially, imagine, like I said, I was having
get on with it. Exactly, stay strong. You don't know what you've got. Stay strong.
That's the word a lot of people, stay strong. But strength has got nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
You can be a strong person, but something like this can crush you.
Of course.
You just need to deal with it the right way.
I mean, hearing you, it made me think, actually, if you don't deal with the situation, you'll end up crumbling even more and more.
Yeah, because it will be, that will be your base, You're standing on a crumbling ground. Because, I even, another thing that I was talking with my therapist was, I used to be really good at dealing with these and these things, but these days I can't. What's going on with me? She's like, you're emotional unstable at the moment. You're crumbling, you don't have, your ground to stand on. So it's, it's normal that you're not dealing with the normal challenges of life, the normal way you do. She said, you need to accept that you as a person have changed. And that was one, another struggle that I had. I'm like, why am I like this? I want to be the Betty before I lost my sister. But the minute I realized, okay, there was Betty before I lost my sister and there is Betty now. And it's okay both ways, I might be stronger in one ways and I've become weaker in other ways, and it's all okay. Acceptance.
It makes
acceptance of many things.
Yes, acceptance. It helps all of us in any shape of life.
Yeah. Trying to change yourself doesn't really help.
Yeah, it doesn't help. So, after your sessions, what did you feel? What feeling did you get out of it?
The first few sessions, they were very tiring. By the end of the session, I used to be really exhausted. I'll go home and I'll be dead because, your emotions are going up and down the whole time for an hour.
Talking about everything, what happened, how you got there. Absolutely. It's very challenging.
Yeah. But as we get along, I become, more used to, used to the session. So, yeah. Towards the end, I was okay. And even like I had a 3-month session. By the end of the 3 months, she was like, there are also group, and it was COVID as well, but she was like, there later on, it might be there group, support groups and so forth if you need it. And I was like, I'm okay now. And I felt confident that I was okay because I was equipped with information. Like I said to you before as well, I start reading around it a lot. Start watching documentaries around it.
Start using different tools to help you.
And I just understand, why am I feeling that way? Why is my my emotion all over the place? Why am I doing certain things? And once I, start understand my emotions, I start to deal with it better.
Then what would you say to someone from our background who's suffering or who are at home or thinking, watching this or listening? What steps should they take?
Ask for help. It's okay to say, I'm not okay, actually. I'm struggling. Because it's liberating, to be honest with you. Until I said it out loud, I was, I felt like I was carrying a tons of load. And once I've started saying to people, I couldn't hide it anymore, because especially the ones who are really, really close to me saw that I was really crumbling and breaking down. I started saying, okay, I admitted it. I said, I'm not okay. I'm not okay at all. I said it out loud. And that was such a relief.
Did your whole mentally, physically start feeling?
I was like, accept it. Like, it's okay that you're not okay. You're not, nobody can handle everything that's thrown at you. And we all go through different challenges in life, and different things affect us differently.
Absolutely, yes.
And you don't always have to be strong. And that's the thing, we've got misconception of what strong means. Actually, being strong is saying, I'm not okay, and talking about your feelings and showing your feelings. Hiding your feelings and looking fine or presenting yourself as if you're fine, that's not being strong, actually.
I feel like that's in our community. We don't want to show our weaknesses.
Absolutely.
Or we don't want to share what's making us feel low, or we make it sound like we're always okay.
Yeah, we always have to be fine. And I always say to people as well, that nowadays I say to them, it's okay, whatever you feel, your feeling, is valid. You don't have to have everything sorted. You feel,
there's no human in this earth that felt okay from the day they're born to the day they die.
Absolutely.
Nobody's happy every day.
There is ups and downs in life, and there is ups and downs in your life, in my life, and how we deal with things, and it's all okay. And when you say I'm not okay, obviously those close to you, they will be there. Because my friends encouraged me to do therapy. They were like, well done, Betty. And that really helped me as well. They were not like, oh, therapy? What were you thinking? They didn't say that. They were like, well done, go for it. And they call me and they're like, how was it? How did it go today? And, their support means a lot.
They give you encouragement.
Absolutely.
So, it's for anyone out there, it's how encouraging the people around you.
Yeah.
Encourage them, to seek help, if they want to do a therapy, or if you think they need a therapy, encourage the people around you, just like what Betty said.
It means a lot, because, if people around you will discourage you, and you're like, oh.
Even if you want to, it might discourage you.
It might discourage,
like,
or if you feel like judged in certain way, or looked at in certain ways, or if they say, oh, you're not crazy, why are you going to therapy? Because that's the mentality, isn't it?
Do you think this is why in our community therapy is not encouraged or accepted, because we live for people, or what people are going to think?
It has got something to do with it, I guess. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, end of the day, even
nobody wants to feel judged, I guess. But again, we shouldn't really feel.
Yeah, because you're going through a problem by yourself in your head. Why are we so worried what other people think?
That's a culture thing, I think.
Yeah. And
that's what we've been taught.
I mean, this is a great opportunity when we have someone like you come in and talking about it, and this is what we want people to learn.
Yeah, no, it's I think maybe when it comes to therapy as well, it's not common in our culture, in our community. Secondly, is people, their go-to tool when they struggle is the church, or if they're Muslim, the mosque, or religion
Play a big part, yeah.
And that's absolutely fine as well, because I've gone to my church and I've done my prayers when I struggled, and that has helped me. But it is also okay to go to therapy or find other means of help. It doesn't make you less of a Christian or less of a Muslim, or whatever religion you are in.
If you can sit at home, have some bunna, have a conversation with your friend. That's therapy itself.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So you shouldn't be ashamed to go to GP to get help. Yeah, a professional
to
one.
advise you how to deal with your emotion.
There you go. I've always said that coffee is therapy because you're sitting in there talking about this. We're so comfortable talking about making money or when you're getting married, we're having kids, but we're not really very good at sitting down talking about problems.
Yeah. We don't really ask ourselves as well. Like, we don't really ask each other, so how are you doing actually? How are you doing emotionally? How are you doing mentally? And someone who struggled, like I said before, doesn't say, in the first instant, I'm not okay, you know. I never did that. Okay. People say to me, how are you? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm fine. And I'll put a big smile and nobody will notice. But if someone really put me down, I'm like, you know, dig deeper, I will talk.
Yeah.
Like I said, I have amazing friends, and there were few who didn't really buy the big smile and I'm okay, you know, who would really dig deeper, or who will say, like, let's go out for coffee. Even if you say no, like, no, let's go for dinner. We're going for dinner today, you know. And I will go and I'll sit and I'll talk about it. And those moments were also that really kept me going. But even having those moments was still not enough. And I still needed to go to therapy. And like I said, the encouragement of my friends, they were like, it's okay. Go ahead. It will help you. You know,
everyone had part to play. And you've heard what Betty said. If anyone, your friends, go check your friends, your families, your next door neighbor, doesn't matter who it is. Let's ask people how they are. Yeah. And this is the only way we can change and improve.
And listen when they talk.
And listening.
And listen. Don't tell them anything. Just be quiet and listen.
I mean, they do say listening is more important than talking.
Absolutely. That's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth.
Exactly. You've heard what she said. So when it comes back to the community now, how can we change? How can we improve? From all this experience you have, you know, we're so proud of what you do. You're going out there talking about it, spreading the message, you know.
Yeah.
What can we do collectively or individually to
work
improve?
on ourselves as an individual? I think that's very important because we all living here as an immigrant, or people who are born here as, you know, first generation of immigrants, children, we have challenges. Regardless of your situations, we have challenges. You know, being black is a challenge these days, you know. So I think we really need to listen to our emotion and take that seriously. Our mental health, we need to take that seriously for each and individual, you know, for individual people, and each and every of us need to take that seriously, because your mental health is as important as your physical health. The same way you take care of your body, the same way you take care of your physical health, you know, take care of your mental health. Listen to yourself, you know, ask yourself, how am I doing today? Am I okay? That's very, very important. That's something that I want to say. And we need to teach at least the next generation that's coming, you know, to look after themselves, you know, mentally as well as physically, spiritually, but mentally is so important, because it's all up in our brain. Everything that we do is all up in our brain, because if we're not okay up there, you know, we're not going to do well at our jobs. We're not going to, you know, reach our goals. It's going to affect our relationship with others.
Absolutely.
It's going to affect our relationship with family. So, you know, controlling your emotion, like we said before, is very, very important, I think.
I mean, I'm loving the message. And how's Betty doing?
Now great. Like, you know, like I said, I found my strength again, and I've gone through this, and in certain ways I've become a lot stronger. In certain ways I might be still weak, but I'm doing great. Thank you.
Every day is learning.
Exactly, you know, and it's just given me, it has taught me to be more sympathetic, wants me to give more. One of the things that I've learned from losing my sister is, like, we have limited time. We don't know when we are going to be called. Yeah. So we need to make the most of the time that we've been given.
Absolutely.
So it's not about it's not all about, what you do in your job or how much money you make or whatever. It's what you leave behind. What's going to be your legacy, really? That is really what I've learned out of this.
It's an amazing journey. I'm sure we're going to have you back and talk more. Before we go, I know you've got some projects coming up.
Yes. And
you would like to let us know what that project's about. She's doing something amazing for the community.
It's called Mela. Just briefly talk about the name. Mela means solution in Amharic. But it's also my sister's name. We used to call her Mela.
The memory lives on. I love it.
Absolutely, and that's one of my driving force, the name. So Mela is a support group for Habesha people in London who've got special needs children. Our main focus is on autism because we feel like autism is, it's something that is, we're seeing it a lot these days. And with especially autism is something that is diagnosed at the later stage of a child, maybe around 2-3 years old. And a lot of time people, parents find themselves in state of devastation, and that's another grief that people go through. And the science tells us that early intervention is very essential for the quality of the life of the children. So what Mela is trying to do is create a safe space for people to come together, share their stories, have a tea and coffee, learn from one another, exchange, information that they have, so that, parents are not struggling by themselves at home. So at the moment, we have found a community that wants to give us the space. So our first meeting is starting on the 18th of September.
And where is it based?
It's going to be in King's Cross. We've got our own social media on Instagram and Facebook.
We're going to put it somewhere down there and people can follow it.
So we've got leaflets going out as well. Thank you for sharing. You've been sharing our leaflets as well.
Yeah, we're here for the support.
There are numbers on the leaflets that you can call for, to ask any questions. And we call out to anyone who wants to attend. Everyone is welcome. Anyone who's got special needs children. But like I said, our main focus is on autism. But any other conditions, if you want to tell your story and come and get information, that would be helpful. You're welcome to do so. What we are also trying to do is, bring professionals every month so that, who can share information. So therefore, we are also asking for people who work in this field, who work, whether you are, you've got educational background, or from from health wise or from council, anyone who thinks that they've got information, useful information for those parents, please do contact us because we need everyone's help for this.
Guys, please, anyone out there, if you live in London, please contact. They do an amazing job. Let's come collectively together as a community. Let's not just talk, put our conversation to action.
Yeah.
And let's just come together and do what we could, because they do an amazing job.
Thank you.
So did you say, is it once a month?
It's going to be once a month. Like I said, the first one is going to be on the 18th of September, but after that, it's going to be every first Saturday of the month.
First Saturday of the month. Brilliant. Yeah. We'll put a detail in there.
It's going to be from 1:30 p.m. until 4:30 p.m.
4:30 p.m. And we're definitely going to bring you back, talk about it in more details.
Absolutely.
And
would love
get
to.
into it. And I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And before we go, is it okay we put your details so people can contact you if they want to know information about therapy or anyone? Sometimes, people, they might feel comfortable to talk about grief, any problem, if they want to speak. They might have a language barrier. They might want to speak in Amharic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll put your detail down there so people can contact you.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
And we appreciate what you're doing. Continue what you're doing.
Thank you.
And we'll have you back here again, definitely. And we appreciate you. Mela, let's give it to her.
Thank you.